A little FANRUN TV exclusive. John Reed and another friend of FANRUN, another person from the alumni base, Lucas Panzica, the everything man over in Nashville. What's up, Big Lou?
What's up, man? It's good to talk to you. It's been a while.
It's good to see you as always. I miss the days when me and you would just be in there grinding, trying to make some sales calls.
Yeah, man, that cold calling that gets old pretty quick.
You're one of my I won't say a success story because I mean obviously you've gone on, you've done really well for yourself. It does make us proud, especially me. But no, I tell some of these guys in there, like, I'm trying to coach up the next generation, and I'll be like, hey, you got to sell, but also like, hey, it might not work out for you. I'm like, I had a guy, Lucas. You probably see him all over the Titans coverage and U.S. soccer and all that. I was like, he worked his ass off, and we made calls all summer. And I was like, poor guy couldn't get one sale. I was like, and it wasn't from a lack of effort. I was like, so it might not ever click for you, but as long as you try, you'll be able to take some stuff and go off and maybe do some good stuff. So I am proud from afar of watching all the cool stuff happen for you in Nashville.
No, appreciate it, man. I'm always following along. I remember I thought I had this amazing idea because we were coming up on the 2018 World Cup at that time. So I was like, I'm going to hammer every single like soccer apparel, goods store, youth camps, and surely we're going to get something out of this. I don't think I sold one thing with FANRUN.
No, I remember you trying to get the I think it's Pelicans snowballs or something like that.
Yeah,
and you being excited about it, and the guy just being like, buddy, we have a blue roof on the middle of Kingston Pike. We don't need to do any advertising at all. And you're like, all right, that's it, John. I am taking another job.
Yeah, like, just give me some of your money, just a little bit.
So what's been going on with the soccer? I see you calling some of the games. Catch me up to speed on that.
Yeah, man. So we're the broadcast partner for Nashville Soccer Club. So doing those games, and then the U.S. men's national team came to Nashville for a friendly against Switzerland, kind of their send off before the Gold Cup this summer. And Westwood One happened to be getting into this agreement with U.S. Soccer, and that happened to be their first game. So things all kind of came together where they hired me. I was fortunate enough to do that game, and so it's kind of been a summer of soccer for me, man. I don't know how much you guys are keeping up U.S. men's national team drama, stuff like that. It's kind of all over the place. But Nashville SC's rolling. I mean, if we're talking about pro teams in the state of Tennessee that are even remotely close to lifting some sort of trophy, it's Nashville SC, and then it's like 100 feet, and then you get into the Grizz, and then it's probably like a couple thousand feet, and then it's the Preds and the Titans trying to work their way up.
Well, it's funny because we had that discussion, a couple of weeks ago after the Thunder won, because, it was Tennessee, maybe Utah, maybe not, and then Oklahoma. Oklahoma, the Thunder got their championship. Utah points out they won an MLS Cup. Some people don't consider that a major sport. Some do. But I was like, either way, it's Tennessee and Utah, or it's just Tennessee.
Yeah.
And, I kind of think if I was betting or buying stock on championship level, like I actually said I thought the Titans maybe had the best shot. I don't know much about the Preds. I know they're kind of stuck in purgatory, rebuilding and whatnot, but I feel like the Titans have a better 5-year window of winning an actual championship than the Grizzlies do. And that's just based off of the hope of Cam Ward, like just the hope that maybe that's a lottery ticket, a top 6 or 7 quarterback that maybe in year 3 or 4, could get Tennessee there, because I don't really see it for this Grizzlies core. And
yeah, that's fair. I mean, in terms of upside and this shining beacon of light and hope, I mean, Cam Ward definitely, he is that personified right now in this state, and people are in love with the guy.
Before we started recording, you were asking me about the vibes in Knoxville. I won't make this too much Titans talk just off the bat, but what are the vibes like in Nashville for Cam Ward and the Titans? Because from afar, once we drafted Cam Ward, I did renew my season tickets. I did actually put the deposit down for the new stadium because I kind of bought into at least the hope that maybe this thing gets turned around. What do you notice talking to your people in Nashville, what the vibes are like?
Are you asking me vibes around Titans or Vols in Nashville?
Titans.
Okay.
Titans.
It is a ton of optimism, but definitely different from last year. Whereas, last year going in, it was like, oh, we might have a quarterback and we've got all these parts and pieces. Let's
spoiler alert, you didn't have a
playoff
quarterback.
Run. Nope. Narrator did. He is who we thought he was. And then going into this year, there's definitely a much more realistic vibe going into the season of like even the most optimistic Titans fan would tell you, like, okay, if we could end up 7-10, that would be fantastic. So it's all just kind of centered around one player in Cam Ward. And you want to be improved on the offensive line. You bet you need to be. You expect to be. And there's some good young talent, but it's
year 4, Lucas. Year 4 of me saying, surely the offensive line can't be worse.
I know.
The first 3 years, they found a way to be worse. I kept saying it has to get better, and it found a way to keep getting worse. Although I feel confident that this year it will finally start to trend upwards.
Yeah, this will be the one. No, I mean, there is no group or aspect of this team where patience is thinner than the O-line. Like, it's almost a bigger challenge. Like, Cam Ward has a tough challenge week 1 in Denver against that defense, Mile High Stadium, first NFL game, all of those things. But, like, there will be grace given to Cam Ward. Whereas this offensive line, even though they're kind of gelling some new starters and they're going to have to learn to play together, it's still this feeling of, no, we don't care. Like, you need to hit the ground running. People are so sick of dreadful O-line play around here. But there is kind of this, everybody understands the situation, right? It's all around Cam Ward, and there's some good faith in how they're building this thing out in terms of just the general project of drafting, to use their little catchphrase, developing and retaining. I think it's kind of like, okay, they're actually trying to do a long-term project here, which hasn't been done in probably too long, definitely at the quarterback position.
Another round of Lucas, tell me about your cool job. What are you doing with the Titans radio network?
I'm doing pre and post this year. So I'm just anchoring back at network control. So I'm the studio host, essentially, just holding it down for pregame and postgame every single week. Obviously, there's a lot of shakeup, right? Mike Keith heads over to East Tennessee. Can't wait to hear him on the Vol Network. Taylor Zarzer comes in as the play-by-play voice of the Titans. So still going to be Titans radio. A lot of the stuff's going to sound, there's still going to be some of that continuity in terms of how it's done. But yeah, just anchoring pre and post pretty much all year.
Is the vibe around that the same as, being on 104.5, as a weekday host? Because I know Buck talks a lot about not being a fan, not rooting for the team. It's not my team. And, a lot of the old school journalists still feel that way. Of course, FANRUN, we don't really do it that way here in Knoxville. When you're working for the Titans, radio network, are you supposed to be neutral, or are you supposed to be approaching it from a fan perspective?
I mean, on the broadcast, on Titans radio, like, we understand what we're there to do. Like,
I feel like Mike Keith was always fired up for the Titans. Like, I feel like Mike Keith was 1,000% like, hey, I'm rooting for the Titans. Yeah.
No, for sure. Like, it is okay to, like, have that coming off. Like, no, I am here. I want the Titans to win while I'm on this broadcast. And I do. Like, I was born in Nashville. I'm not, like, shy about that at all. And then on the radio show, like, there's no reason to hide the fact that I grew up a Titans fan. But and the one thing I'll give the Titans credit for, too, is I've never once, ever heard anybody or had a colleague or anybody hear from someone over there that's like, hey, we didn't like the way you said this. You don't need to be talking about us like this as a partner. I know it happens in some places, but to their credit, like, they kind of, they understand the situation, right? This is big boy football. It's the NFL. You're going to get criticism, and we're not afraid to let that fly in the day-to-day. And on Titans radio, you tell it like it is. You talk about what happened. But yeah, like, we all understand the situation. If you're a member of Titans radio, then you're there because you are managing the broadcast, the official broadcast of the Tennessee Titans. I think we can all kind of understand that. And
I think everyone understands. And that's what always drove me crazy as a kid and someone, trying to break into business is, even now we still deal with it from fans sometimes of like, oh, you want the team to lose. It's better for ratings when the team loses. I'm like, no, business is so much better for everyone involved when things are good. Yeah. Like, if the Titans went on a Super Bowl run, that would be great for your show. That'd be great for the radio show. If the Titans, had that miraculous turnaround, if the Vols had a miraculous turnaround, like, that would be great for the city of Knoxville, the state in general. So that's always driven me crazy. I asked you about the Titans. Let's switch gears. Let's talk some balls. What's been the read in the mid-state when it comes to the Big Orange?
I don't know. It feels like people are kind of bracing themselves a little bit. Like, you're going into this year where, you're not necessarily like worried about a total bottoming out. Like I feel okay about the floor of the program right now under Heupel. On like 8-4, 7-5 would be like a little extra disappointing, but you definitely feel like the ceiling is not what it was last year, which almost kind of, in this weird way takes the pressure off going into this year, where I almost am viewing it as like this gap year, kind of like 2023 was, where Joe Milton's there. Okay, let's see what we can do with him, but Nico's backing him up. We all know that's when this really we really take off, is 2024 with Nico. Now it kind of feels like that similar thing with Joey Aguilar and Faison Brandon coming down the pipe. And so it's kind of this weird feeling of, you should be in a spot where, okay, you made the playoff last year. The natural next step is to elevate. Can you make noise in the playoff? But nobody has that as an expectation going into this year, which is kind of like, okay, a little mystery box season. Let's see if we can make something of it, win 9-10 games. If not, hold it down in that 8-4-ish range and load up for 2026 and beyond.
I get what you're saying, and I do agree for the most part in terms of it feeling kind of like 23. The major difference to me is that we're now going 2 years in a row looking at a third year where the offense was not what we expected. In 23, you could have a step back because you saw what Josh Heupel and Alex Golish's offense looked like in 21, then, of course, in 22. But now, as we sit here coming into 25, the offense was not good in 23 under Joel Milton, and it was not good or creative at all with Nico Iamaleava. So I do think it's a little bit different from, in that regard. There's more pressure to me when it comes to Joey or Merklinger or McIntyre or whomever than there was on Milton, I think, in 23.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I mean, we've just kind of been sitting around waiting for the offense to get anywhere close to 2022 levels. There's a lot of factors into why that hasn't been the case, but that is an element of pressure that we haven't really talked about. It does right now. Does it feel like Josh Heupel is getting somewhat of a pass? Like right now, that conversation can change in November when you're struggling a little bit and the offense is struggling and tempers are starting to flare. But right now, doesn't it feel like he kind of has this like, but like we get it. If you kind of struggle this year, maybe it's not necessarily on you and we need to reload for 2026.
So when you say a pass, are you talking about with the fan base?
With the fan base, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, because I feel like Josh has been getting kind of, flamed a little bit in the national or, regional media when it comes to college football. I feel like it always starts, every February, March, April when it comes, mock draft season. And you got people going through Tennessee prospects and they're like, oh, this quarterback's not progressing, or this wide receiver's route tree is too simple, and this running back, the run lanes are too wide open. And I feel like you combine that with the Ohio State massacre, with Nico leaving and on the way out kind of saying, hey, it's the offense on the way out. It's not money, like you're saying. It's that I don't trust this offense. So I'm going to go to UCLA of all places where they are really known for innovative offenses. So I think from a national/regional perspective, Heupel's kind of in a prove-it year. Like I talked about the offense the last 2 years. I think he kind of needs to kind of remind people who he is. I give him credit, Big Lou, for being able to win defensively. Like I do give him credit for finding a way to kind of remake his image or be malleable, because I never would have thought Tennessee would have had like a top 15 defense when Tennessee hired Josh Heupel. Like I just would have thought it would have been stylistically impossible with how fast the offense goes and the way they were going to recruit it on that side of the field. But instead, I mean, you could argue that it was just old school Jeff Fisher type of football, run the ball and play defense, that got you to the playoffs last year. But, going back to your original question about the fan base, I do think right now Heupel is riding momentum from being the coach to tell a spoiled NIL kid to go to hell. Like I do think that gained a lot of goodwill with the fan base. But Urban Meyer, I think, said it a couple months ago. I think it was Urban Meyer.
Yeah, it was.
If Tennessee's getting beat, in Atlanta by Syracuse, or is down 30 points against Georgia in the first big home game, not a lot of the crowd's going to be like, well, you know what? At least we took a stand. It's going to be like, what the hell is going on with this offense? What is happening to this program?
Yeah, and even if that doesn't happen, even if like things are just kind of status quo in that 8-4 range that we keep coming back to, then you even then start to get antsy. Like, yes, there could be hype going into 2026, but also there's kind of this shifting around in the seat of, okay, so the program is turned around, and that's fantastic. That's a great job by Josh Heupel. We're winning 10 games now. Like, that's a thing that we do. We beat Alabama from time to time. We beat Florida from time to time. When is it okay to make that pivot into, okay, now it's about competing for championships? And at what point, like, when do we reach that pivot point of, okay, now we're past the you got this program back relevant again. Now, when is it not good enough to just be relevant and be outside the conversation of elite? Like, how close are we to crossing that threshold of, okay, that's no longer good enough? Now the expectation is championships after accomplishing that first part, which it seems like he's accomplished.
It seems crazy to ask it, but it's a fair question just because people were so mad after Ohio State beat your ass. Like, people were so mad talking about how far the program was from, competing for championships. And were they wrong? I think it was overstated. But, like, yes, Tennessee was not in position to be championship level good. However, I do feel like if the bracket worked its way out like it would this year, where being the 8th best team in the country actually gets you a home game against SMU versus having to go on the road to Columbus, I think we look at that drastically different if the path is, hey, play SMU at home, and then maybe you get Georgia at a neutral site, or maybe you even get Oregon at a neutral site. I think it would have been a much better feeling coming out of the season, but you got absolutely shellacked by an Ohio State team that at the time people thought, there was blood in the water for that program and for that coach. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a huge disservice. So I don't think people are ready even anywhere near close to talking about championship or bust. However, what I will say is that, you need to win games. You need to, if you're not going to win games, you need to be fun, because Tennessee won games last year. They went 10-2, and some people were still upset with a home schedule that included beating Florida and beating Alabama. But it was like, well, you didn't score any points in the first half. Can we maybe clean that up? Can we maybe score some points? Can we not win these defensive struggles on the road at Oklahoma? Like, think about how crazy that is. Tennessee went to Norman, Oklahoma, won convincingly on the road, and the conversation was, well, that was really boring in the second half. That wasn't very fun. And I'm just like, that's kind of crazy to me. But at the same time, man, everything's getting more expensive. And, I think you'd find it hard to find places in the SEC or across the country where things have gotten as expensive in a hurry as they have at Tennessee when it comes to the ticket prices and the talent fee that Danny's putting on top of it, and just kind of the everyday squeeze when it comes to these fans. So I don't know what the wiggle room is. Do I think people are going crazy if Tennessee goes 9-3? No. Do I think the seat starts getting hot if you go 8-4 and it's also ugly? That would be interesting, and I really, really hope that's not the case.
Yeah, hot seat would feel like an extreme way to put it.
It is, but I mean, like, disgruntledness from the fan. Yes. Like, the fan sorry to cut you off, but the hot seat with the fans always comes like a year before the hot seat with the administration. It 100%. Would be like, hey, 26 is hot seat with the fans, and then if you go 7-5 or 8-4, then you're on a hot seat with the administration.
Yeah, there would be this feeling of like stagnation, I think, for sure.
Decline, even. I would say decline.
Yeah, if they don't overperform expectation, which win total is sitting at what? Is it 7.5 at the moment?
I want to say it was 8.5 last time I checked. It's not quite as bad. 7.5. What the hell are you guys doing in Nashville talking about 7.5? Things ain't gotten that bad yet, have they? Let me check just to make sure. I could have sworn
it was 7.5 at some point and maybe went up to 8.5. I don't know.
Let me check, because if it's 7.5, I'm going to feel a lot worse about this season. I've been operating under the guys. Let me go over to my friends over at VIP Play. 1 second. Tennessee.
I think you're probably right. It would be a feeling of stagnation rather than a feeling of, if he doesn't do it in 2026, get him out of here. But you'd kind of take the next step towards that feeling, I guess.
No, yeah, and like I said, it needs to be fun, while you're doing it. It needs to be fun. So right now you can get number of regular season conference wins. What would you set the over-under for regular season conference wins?
Oh, regular season conference wins, I'd say.
Yeah, so basically taking Syracuse off.
Yeah, I'd say, 8-game schedule, right? So I'd say 500, so I suppose 3.5. 4.5.
You're too far down on the boys. 4.5, Lucas. 4.5. So the over-under is 8.5. So, like, that's kind of the that's kind of the expectation right now. Did you see the point spreads that came out for 4 of the big games for Tennessee on their schedule? Of course, Syracuse is already there, minus 12.5, but they released the spreads for the Georgia game and then the 2 road trips at Alabama and at Florida. Have you seen those?
No, I haven't. Georgia.
Right, let's play a little guessing game.
Oh,
Tennessee hosting Georgia, first SEC game for the boys.
I'm going to say Georgia's favored by a touchdown.
Let me take a sip of my sugar right quick. Ding, 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 ding. 7 points. Good job by you.
All right. There we go. Let it know.
You did much better than the boys out in the FANRUN lobbies. They had it at like 9.5, 10.5. So
I don't know if people are in love with Georgia right now. I don't know.
I mean, not until we see Gunnar Stockton actually like play some high level football. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I do think people are gun shy when it comes to playing Georgia. Of course, they've kicked your ass, and also it's the only team that's won in Knoxville the last 3 years. Although I maintain, I maintain that they got to take advantage of kind of Joe Milton and an overmatched Tennessee team. I'm not sure the gap is still as wide as it once was, especially with Gunnar Stockton. All right, so +7. Do you have a lean one way or the other right now in terms of would you bet Georgia or Tennessee in that game?
In that game, I would bet Georgia in that game right now. I think Georgia is still in the areas that matter most when it comes to in the trenches, talent profile. Georgia is still Tennessee proof in that regard, in my mind, until we see a great equalizing quarterback, which Hendon Hooker was, and even still, Tennessee wasn't able to make up that gap.
It was raining. It was raining. It's tough to play quarterback in the rain. But also, I do wonder what would have happened in 22 if that game was in Knoxville. Like, I do think that's a little bit different of a game if it's in Knoxville.
Yeah, and the talent disparity was absolutely there. Like, Tennessee was way less talented than the Alabama team they beat, than the Georgia team they lost to. But the offense was this incredible equalizer, which made it obviously really fun looking down the road. Well, imagine when they do get closer to that level of talent, if that offense is able to maintain and sustain, but it hasn't. So until I have any idea of what Joey Aguilar is and if this Tennessee offense is back on track in any way, I'm going to say that gap is still there if Tennessee doesn't have something to equalize it. Even
all the boys out in the lobby said to hammer Georgia. I'm not going that far because I do believe in Nealon magic. So let me see what Joey Aguilar on the offense looks like week 1 against Syracuse before I make a call. Because maybe the deep ball's back on the table. Maybe the deep ball's back on the menu and we can go out there and connect a couple of them. All right, so road trip to Tuscaloosa, Tennessee at Alabama. What's your prediction on the spread?
Oh, man. In Tuscaloosa, I bet it's Bama right now, 10.5.
12. You're doing much better than these boys. All right. Same thing. I mean, it's so hard to talk about Tennessee without circling back to the quarterback position.
Yeah, I know.
It's so hard to forecast anything about this team just because we don't know what we're going to get.
But same with Georgia and Gunnar Stockton. Same with Alabama with Ty Simpson. It is interesting. There's a lot of these teams. If you're not Texas, LSU, and I guess Florida or South Carolina, how legit, and Vandy, I suppose, how legitimately excited are you about your quarterback going into this year? It's kind of an interesting year in the SEC in that regard.
What do you think the advantage is, the gulf? Because in the past, the gulf in the trenches, for Tennessee against both Alabama and Georgia, pretty wide. But, I do feel like Tennessee's defensive line, at least on that side of the ball, I know they lost James Pierce and, big lots, but Gardner's still going to have them playing pretty well. And the offensive line, much like the Titans, should be pretty improved. You add some blue chip talent and some pretty good transfer stopgaps. Do you feel like there's still an overwhelming advantage for Georgia and Alabama in the trenches against Tennessee?
An advantage. I don't know how overwhelming. Tennessee up front, just defensively, the whole roster, it feels like talented but unproven, feels like sort of the general theme, right? All right, Joshua Josephs, can he kind of step in to replace that production? One of Ross or Herring has to, take some sort of leap in 2025 on the edge. I feel okay about the defensive line. It's one of those things like Rodney Garner, do your thing, not really worried about it. But a lot of those guys on the edge are going to have to prove that they're difference makers.
Yeah, to me, Garner gets the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
The offensive line, we'll see how they pass block. I think they'll be able to run block because, like we talked about, Josh Heupel gets made fun of because his offense leaves too wide of running lanes for the running backs. So I think that's a good thing. So I think the run game will be able to, still produce. We'll see if the offensive line can block. Last one, Tennessee at Florida. This is what many are calling the swing game for the season. I think there's a chance, even if you lose those first two games, your underdogs against Alabama and Georgia, even if you lose those first two games, you might be headed to the swamp with a playoff berth on the line if you only have 2 losses.
Always Florida, that's the swing game. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. If it's the SEC opener, it's just going to determine to set the tone for the rest of the year, or it's the second to last game of the season, which is going to be so weird to be playing Georgia or Florida in the swamp in late November. I bet, or what's Florida right now? I don't know, 1.5, 3.5 point favorite.
3-point favorites. Florida favored by 3 right now.
Interesting, and that comes down to the quarterback position, I would imagine. And home field advantage. I mean, that is home field advantage, essentially.
What do you make of Florida this year?
They're very intriguing. I mean, I do think DJ Lagway can be an absolute stud, but that schedule is the same as it was last year, just kind of flip-flopped with home and away. So it's going to be so fascinating to see how that flips on Billy Napier, where last year, what did he win? 8 games. And if you told any Florida fan the day Billy Napier was hired, hey, he'll be winning 8 games in, was it year 4 for him last season at Florida or whatever, wherever we are in the Billy Napier era. If you told any Florida fan the day he was hired, 2024, 8-win season, gone, fired. He clearly has not improved enough. He has not elevated the program enough, but he dug himself out of a hole and he was given grace for that schedule. Now he goes into this year with a little bit higher level of expectation because he has a quarterback. He's got a relatively talented roster. And now does the schedule work against him? Because if you win 8 games again, it's not going to feel as good for Florida as it did last year.
Don't think I'm not noticing. You've been a little negative on the Vols, and now you're pumping up Florida. We don't count bowl records when you're saying, when you're talking about a team's win-loss. They won 7 games.
They won 7.
They went 7. They went 7 and 5
crazy.
and won a bowl game.
7-5, and that saved his job. 7-5 in year 4.
Year 3.
Year 3. Okay.
Now, what I will say, and not to beat a drum, because the people that listen to this, I've made this point a couple times, but I also think it was also that rare position where you actually break the glass to bring in the 5-star freshman to get a boost in the arm, and it actually kind of works. I do wonder what happens this year if they're 6-4 or 5-5 and they don't have that quarterback to turn to, because that early schedule is still really, really tough for them. They should not be playing for a playoff spot when Tennessee comes to town, and we know that that's kind of a traditional, front-running fan base. So I do think getting them late in the season behooves Tennessee. Do you have a lean on how that game's going to go? Would you take Tennessee in the +3, lay it with Florida, or just kind of wait and see where the teams are at?
I would take Tennessee in the +3, but I have been in believe it when I see it mode about Tennessee winning in the swamp, I will say.
Yeah. I'm a dumbass that's made 3 trips down there. I don't know if I'll make a 4th one this year.
Wait, what years?
I went 11 when Justin Hunter tore his ACL.
Yeah, immediately.
I went 15 when Butch Jones forgot when to go for 2, and we blew a 13-point fourth-quarter lead instead of a 14-point fourth-quarter lead.
Hail Mary? Did you go for the 20?
You think I went? Hold on. You think I went in 2015, saw what I saw, and then decided to go support Butch Jones?
Quentin Dormady will do it.
Yeah, no thanks. I didn't go back to watch Butch Jones. I went back this last year. Or not last year, 23 with Milton.
Yeah, that was a frustrating game, but 2015, the worst of those, no doubt.
Yeah. So I don't know if they'll get me back there this November or not. We'll see how the season goes. All right, Big Lou, anything else you want to hit before? I told you I'd keep you 30 minutes. We're at 30 minutes. Anything else you want to talk about? Get off your chest?
Nah, man. I don't know. I'm fascinated at this year. It's just this weird. I've called it a mystery box because I feel okay about the floor, but I have no idea about the ceiling. I just feel like it's lower than it was last year. And I truly don't know what to make of a baseline expectation. That's the thing. I'm having the hardest time so far in the Heupel era to come up with the barometer for success and disappointment for this team this year. And that's the question that I've just been wrestling with. I
think if you allow your old buddy,
please,
to maybe try to simplify it for you. My take is you can be 8-4 and exciting, 9-3 and blah. Like, 9-3 and the offense still isn't great. Like, I think those are the two kind of things.
What would you prefer?
What would I prefer? I prefer to win 9 games. Like, I think every win, we just had such long losing streaks against so many of these programs that, like, I don't really take winning for granted. I was not one of those people that was bothered by the 2024 aesthetics. Like, I didn't mind winning ugly. Like I said, it was Jeff Fisher ball. That's the type of football I like. I loved that, 23-17 win over Florida or whatever it was in overtime. Like, that's the type of scores I like. Was 52-49 over Alabama fun? Yes, but that wasn't the football purist side of me. So I just want to win.
Well, I mean, to your point earlier, like, okay, so he showed he has that in his tool belt, that ground control, time of possession type of grinding out victories. That's great, and that's a very sure sign of an evolving coach, right? Who's got not a one-trick pony, Josh Heupel. But you still have to have the trick that everybody thought made you a one-trick pony. So,
well, here's the thing: if he does that again, he's a one-trick pony. The trick is defense. Like, he's a pitcher that lost his fastball and he just knows how to throw the knuckleball. It works, but like the ceiling is a lot lower if that's the case. So, I do think it's a fair question because if you told me he was 8-4, the defense wasn't quite as good. Florida just happened to be really good. Oklahoma was really improved.
Yeah, you lost a weird game in the swamp at the end of the year.
But if you told me like Aguilar balled out enough to get you excited for Faison Brandon, then like, maybe people would sign up for that. But I'm always give me as many wins as possible.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, Big Lou, appreciate you making time, brother. I hope to catch up with you soon. Like I said, you're invited to the tailgate Georgia weekend if you want to come hang out with us. Appreciate you making time. Best of luck the rest of the worst part of year. Although I guess with you having soccer, you got a little bit of a bridge there.
I love me some June and July, especially next year with the World Cup coming around. No, I appreciate it, man. Great seeing you, and I need to make my way over there.
Are we cooked? Before I let you go, is Team USA cooked? Because you asked if I keep up with it. I saw us, edge out and barely advance. I saw, the new manager basically telling Christian Pulisic he's not a pinata or he's not a mannequin. He's actually going to coach. So like to fall in line. Yeah. Didn't seem like people really liked those quotes, but like, are we cooked? Are we going to get embarrassed in the World Cup next year?
I would still say the probability is yes. This group of young, scrappy U.S. players missing most of their number one stars has they've been pushing and getting better in the Gold Cup, which is great. But it's just the drama, man. It's just like the U.S. men's soccer is not good enough to have this kind of drama year in and year out.
Do you have a chance? And maybe you don't have an answer, but do you have a chance of getting to work the World Cup and getting to call games?
That's the hope, right? I mean, Westwood won, so full disclosure, they're getting into this partnership with U.S. Soccer, and they're kind of seeing how it goes this year with the hopes to be able to turn it around, because getting the rights to U.S. soccer friendlies very different from getting the rights to the FIFA World Cup. Obviously, things would have to look pretty good on their end to do that, so they're trying to turn it around, utilize this game that we did the other day as proof of concept, and they're doing a game in D.C. on Wednesday too, a women's game. And so we'll see. The TBD, but
possible at least.
It is a greater than zero chance, which is all I could possibly ask for.
So the fear that like ESPN or Fox Radio just come in and like big boys Westwood won. Is that like kind of the biggest obstacle there? Or
not even. Work? I just think that just that their margins would have to be good enough in order to acquire the rights. Essentially, like they'd have to be able to turn around and go to certain presenting sponsors that maybe already are aligned with U.S. soccer and show that proof of concept. So we'll see. It's going to be a huge summer next year in the U.S., obviously, but we'll see. So like I said, all I can ask for is a chance. Yeah, I
believe that Lucas will. I believe that Lucas will call the games. I got to workshop that.
They're still doing that. See you, buddy.
See you, Bob.